So, if you're at all involved with or are aware of the anime community and industry, then you'd probably know about the big news that happened in the past few weeks. That being the passing of Akira Toriyama, the legendary creator of Dragon Ball, Dr. Slump, the artist behind the Dragon Quest series, and one of the most influential manga artists ever. I, like many others around the world, would call myself a fan of Toriyama's works, and grew up with them, so it was a very sudden and shocking passing of not just a celebrity, but an amazing artist who influenced so many people across many generations, languages, cultures, and mediums with his love for storytelling, jokes, and living life to its fullest. So today I'd like to dedicate this little video to Toriyama, talk about his works, his legacy, my personal experiences with them, and what they mean to me and many others. Like most people living outside Japan, Dragon Ball was my first exposure to Toriyama's works. I've mentioned this in a previous video of mine, but I didn't like Dragon Ball at first as a kid. I saw it on TV, and I just didn't like it. It was probably a bit too adult for me at being a young age. However, its weirdness was very memorable and stuck with me for over a decade, and that curiosity eventually built up, and I rediscovered Dragon Ball at the perfect time. Super was about to start, and I was right in the target audience for the series, a young teenager. So I went back and watched Z and Super. And this once seemingly huge, strange, and what I thought to be kind of stupid, over-the-top muscles and fighting show was actually a really funny story with lots of heart, well-done action, and memorable characters. I finally got it. Then, by late high school, I finally got around to reading the manga of the original Dragon Ball, aka the Kid Goku era up to the Saiyan saga, and it became my favorite part of the series, my favorite Toriyama work, and probably one of my favorite manga of all time. Something about early Dragon Ball is just so earnest, simple, and it's brimming of heart and charm. It's definitely not perfect, but it's so hard to hate, and the personality of its characters are just so infectious. They really do just leap off the page, thanks in part to Toriyama's incredible art, composition, and expert knowledge at the medium of comics and manga. And because I read it, I got to see it in its best form, entirely through Toriyama's penmanship. I continued to follow the anime as I got a bit older and watched the end of Dragon Ball Super, was excited for Super Broly, the movie, and eventually the Superheroes movie, which came out a few years ago. And yeah, I will watch Dragon Ball Daima when that does come out this year. The other main series that Toriyama was known for was, of course, Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest is a very iconic JRPG. Granted, it was never as popular in the West as, say, Final Fantasy, but I've always found it more interesting, mainly due to the art. I didn't really get into Dragon Quest until quite recently, which was when I played the first one on my Switch, and I visited family for Christmas, and I spent that weekend of Christmas with my family and playing Dragon Quest and finishing it because it's just a short, very fun game. And Toriyama, of course, did all the art for Dragon Quest, and continued to work with it until the current day. He's the reason it was so iconic. Toriyama also has many other works I've yet to see, such as Sandland and Dr. Slump. Sandland has recently gotten a lot more love and attention with an anime, a movie, and a game adaptation, and I was planning on reading it eventually, so that is definitely on the agenda for me this year. One of the great things about Toriyama was that he included things he was interested in, such as dinosaurs and his love for vehicles and mech designs, simply because he enjoyed it and he wanted to. That love then carried on to his viewers, just because it was so genuine. His passion and personality leaked out of his pen and into the worlds and the characters he created. He encouraged us to work and live life with a level of carefreeness, and to its fullest with enjoyment. He winged a lot of his stories, didn't plan too much, and didn't worry too much about the small details. He may forget them for the sake of storytelling, or if he wants to retcon them, he did. But he was able to create such rich worlds and characters that resonate with so many people because of how genuine they are, and because of just how human and genuine he was in his writing. Over the years, I have collected some Toriyama art books, a Dragon Ball collection, and the manga up to about the beginning of the Saiyan saga. I might carry it on a bit more, but of course manga collecting is a bit expensive and takes up a lot of space, so we shall see. And it wasn't just me. His worlds have clearly touched people all over. His influence and impact can be seen everywhere, in not just Japan, but the rest of the world. If you're a fan of any shonen, anime, or JRPGs, at least some of that is owed to Toriyama, with the tropes and common plot points seen in shonen manga and anime even still to this day. Juggernaut authors have stated how they were inspired by him, such as Eiichiro Oda, the creator of One Piece. Dragon Quest was also essentially the first JRPG as we know them today, and it became such a big hit in part due to his art that breathed life into the series and the monsters. Outside of Japan, Dragon Ball is undeniably one of the most important anime ever. It played a huge role in making it more popular outside Japan in the 90s. Countless anime fans will have at least some fond memories of Dragon Ball, and it's a huge phenomenon in many countries. Take Latin America for example, where whole communities came together to watch the finale of Dragon Ball Super. You can see it on YouTube, and I remember being so excited to see the final fight play out, and seeing people react the same way all around the world was truly something special. It still gives me goosebumps to this day when I watch recordings of it, because I remember being there and just being so excited. We really do owe so much to Toriyama, and all the while he continued to live a humble and quiet life, content with making illustrations and including fun little jokes in his works. His characters and some of his themes encourage us to live our lives in a way we enjoyed, and he tried to do the same despite the crushing time and work constraints of the manga industry. And he continued right up until the very end. He never officially retired and continued working alongside people on projects such as the aforementioned Sandland ones, Dragon Quest XII, and Dragon Ball's 40th anniversary this year. As time marches on and media becomes more and more about remaking and reusing the same ideas from the past, the number of these legendary creators that have influenced so many that are still working, let alone even being alive, is getting lower and lower. And Toriyama was absolutely one of those creative giants. It really is sad that he had to leave so soon. However, when he passed, my social media timeline was full of people sharing their memories and experiences about his works, fan art they made as kids, how he was able to inspire so many people into becoming artists themselves, whether they traced a paper over a TV screen of Dragon Ball frames, or made fan art later on as adults or teenagers. Heck, I even did it. Here is some of my fan art from high school, around the Dragon Ball Super era. I was inspired to make comics and little fan stories based on the Dragon Ball world with my friends as well. Part of my style has definitely been influenced by Toriyama's. Many people's have, and you can see the DNA of his art in so many anime and games today. Coincidentally, the day after he passed away, and it wasn't publicly announced yet, I was getting a new bookshelf and finally decided to get the last of the manga I needed to complete my collection of the early Dragon Ball era. And I decided to reread it before even knowing about the news. I think that is a testament to how his legacy will continue to live on, and how we can always come back to timeless stories like these. So I think of so many people happily celebrating his life with artwork and bonding over fond memories about his works, is what he would have preferred over a sadful mourning. After all, his art was so full of joy and encouraged us to do the same, which is why I wanted to make this video sharing my joy that Toriyama has brought me. And I'd at least hope that he was able to see how many people he brought happiness to, and was able to touch through his art and stories. So, I'd like to say, thank you, Akira Toriyama.